everyone. Welcome to the January 17th, 2018 Village of North Hudson Plan Commission meeting. First item is a call to order, which we just did. Roll call.
Member Bachman, Howard.
Here.
Chair Miser.
Here.
Member Mitchell. Schneider.
Here.
Wecken. Here. White.
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum. Before we get to the next item, we usually do, towards the end, we go to old business, new business, but I'll do it now because we have a new village clerk, Jessica Lehman, and she's back there. So, welcome.
Welcome, Jessica.
She'll be with
Jessica.
she'll be doing our plan commissions from now on.
Okay.
Next item is the approval of the meeting minutes from our last meeting, which was August 23rd. There's a lot there. Hopefully everyone went through it. Any comments, questions?
I move approval.
Motion's been made to approve. A second?
I second.
Okay, any other additions, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the meeting minutes of August 23rd, 2017, signify by saying aye. Aye. We have approved the meeting minutes. And now tonight on the agenda, we have two public hearings. They're sort of related, but we'll do them one at a time. First one is a public hearing, conditional use permit application of Stephen J. McFarland Storage Associates and St. Croix Storage and Transfer to construct a 6-foot high chain link fence around existing businesses at 207, 215, 247, and 239 Monroe Street North. Discussion and possible recommendation. Before we go into a public hearing, somebody want to talk about what the project is, what they're proposing? If so, please go up to the microphone.
Summer.
Well, I'm Steve McFarland, and the subject that we're talking about tonight is a chain link fence around what are basically the rail yards in North Hudson. So I've been before the Plan Commission, I don't know, it seems like a few times now, and in each one of those I've talked about the fact that eventually we were going to come and propose the fence. We've had conversations with the police department in North Hudson. We've talked to, obviously, this board and the full town board about different traffic that runs through that property, activities that, you know, aren't good for us or the neighborhood in terms of people being able to drive onto the property and kind of hide out in the storage areas and even behind some of the old warehouse buildings. So the purpose of the chain link fence is not only to provide additional security for our businesses, but also to stop the traffic from kind of flowing through there and keeping people out of areas that are not otherwise traveled.
Okay. I'll ask a question. You submitted two different photographs of proposed fencing, and from discussing it with others, it's two separate fences because you don't have contiguous property, is that correct?
That's correct. So what is commonly referred to as the Bugatti building in the middle of the property in the rail yard, that is a piece of property that is owned by a gentleman in Stillwater. So we do not actually own that particular building or the property that it sits on. So, and we've been here a couple of times also to talk about the remediation efforts. So just a point of clarification, when we went through the remediation, that property was not included in the remediation. That property owner opted out of participating in that remediation.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Mr. McFarland? Otherwise, let's see your clerk describe the answers to the questions he had. Kevin?
Sure. Alright. So, went through, did our standard review. I know there's been comments that have been provided. I guess in regards to since we're kind of going through just the chain link fence, there was just some questions that I had asked. Just some clarifications, you know, on the maps that were provided. Kind of two things that stood out is at 215 and 239, Didn't notice or see like an interconnecting fence on the west side there on Galahad Road. And I know since then, the applicant has submitted some response comments. I know Melissa had forwarded those off, but the intent is not to have a fence in that area. Apparently, there's an existing like barbed wire fence, and that's intermixed with the vegetation in that area. It's not to say that wouldn't be revisited down the road, but at this time, there is no plan to put a new one in that area. The other one, just some clarification at 215 on the southeast side there, that particular building. The fence, it looks like there will be, a gap. It's not going to be connecting right to the building per se. Yeah.
You
Yep,
can see it
it's-
where it runs along the building.
Yeah.
That one?
So that's proposed just to be, along the driveway or access road down through there, and then
Does that make sense to you?
What's the purpose of that? Can you explain that?
Well, part of the purpose is, again, to slow traffic.
Mr. McFarland, can you go up and be with,
Microphone
yeah,
for the TV.
it's on, yeah, it's being recorded, it's on cable.
So there are two purposes for that section of fence. One is to slow the traffic of property between the different properties, as well as basically put up a barrier between us and the property that has not been remediated. So we just have,
Yeah, so, but I just see it running along, is that the east, parallel to the east wall of the building,
yes,
where it
Yep.
runs, how far is it, 12 feet off the building wall?
it'd be, roughly 12 feet, 10 to 12 feet off of the building wall. And then it would take a sharp turn to the
To
west
the west.
and run out to the tree structure that's out there near Galahad.
I don't want to get too nitty gritty, but why do you not just end it at the end of the building?
Ended
Come
at
into
the end.
corner. Instead of
Pardon?
running parallel to the building, why not come and hit the corner and have a gate or something? But, I mean, it just seems odd to have a fence in front of the building. Are you trying to allow access to the doors are there? Or
Yeah,
something?
yeah, primarily we want to have access not only to the building, but also for lawn maintenance and plowing and things like that, to be able to have a,
Go around.
yep. Yep.
Is there any entrances in the existing gnarly fence work for fire access to the backside of the buildings?
Yes. Yep. We didn't have any questions about that as far as access, but you'll see that there's a gate, there's an access road from Galahad in the northwest corner of the property that is not used but has been left there and maintained for fire access. And when they did the extension of the water main into that part of the property, there was actually a fire plug that was put on the property in that corner.
Do fire trucks have the ability to get between that fence line and the back of those buildings down along that, if they were needed to follow along that line?
Yes.
Along the fence line? Can they travel that way?
Actually, the way that this is drawn right now, there should be another gate between that northern building and Galahad to allow them to travel between and down that side.
Because if, say if a fire truck were to go in there and get overwhelmed, its only means of exiting the area would be in reversing rather than going forward and pulling out of
Yep.
another possible gate. How many gates do you intend to have in these fences, access points?
So right now, there's the gate on Galahad. There's the gate on the second building from the north. There would be a gate between the building, the northern building and Galahad, so that'd be 3 gates on that north end.
Okay.
And then on the south end, there would be 3 gates as well. There would be the gate off of Wisconsin Street, the gate that is to the west of the southern building, and then there will be a gate on the eastern side of that building. So a total of 6 gates for the project.
Okay.
And in the clarification, we've agreed to give access to, whatever access to the gates that the fire department, police department want.
Is the gate on Wisconsin going to be a mechanical operated gate?
It'll
for
be, it'll
tenants
be-
that are having their,
Yep, it'll be an electronic gate. Actually,
With a keypad
all
or something?
3 gates on the southern project will be electronic gates.
okay.
Okay, on these, right, I see three on this page. That's right.
Yep. There's a gate missing, there's a gate missing on the northern property.
Oh,
There should be
okay.
a gate between the northernmost building and Galahad for fire access.
Well, there's one there.
Yeah.
There should be another one.
Should be another one right
Where? On the north? Over here?
There should be another
Okay.
gate right here.
Oh, here.
So that they can pass through there.
Oh, there,
Oh, over there.
here.
Oh, here,
Yeah, okay.
the tree. Where's this gate? There, that's what I thought, so they could go in there and go
We'll get to that.
get to the back of the building.
Okay,
Here, so they can-
Kevin, you have any more?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, the other thing that's already been addressed then is, you know, we do have public facilities, we have sanitary sewer, water main in those areas. So that was one of our concerns, that there's some kind of a drop box or, you know, like electric keypad, you know, if there's a code or whatever, that would be shared with the village, along with the fire department, and the police department, so they have access to those areas, kinda outside the, you know,
You saw the responses, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yep. So that's been addressed too,
It seems like they've covered all your questions
yes.
I just want to hear from him. then.
adequately.
Yeah, yep, in regards to the fence, definitely,
Yeah.
yes.
Any members, anything for Kevin? Not, I'll ask for motion to go into public hearing, so we
so
can hear
moved.
from the folks. Excuse me?
I said I so moved.
Okay, is there a second? To go in public hearing, okay. All in favor of going into public hearing, signify by saying aye. Aye. We are now in public hearing at 13 minutes after. So now it is open up to the public. I request that you have any questions or comments, please go up to the podium, state your name and address, and go ahead.
My name is Bill LaBelle, and I live at 601 Cherry Circle, which butts up to the property. My wife and I talked it over, and our feeling, by the way, I'd like to point out that you did a very good job on the property. It looks very good. I can tell you that you really care. But what we would like to see is to make the fence possibly aesthetically pleasing, or possibly set the fence off the path to keep the path pleasant, and then possibly plant trees in front of it, so that the path has maybe trees and then the fence on that side, so that it looks good. Otherwise, if it's on the property line, we've also felt that if the fence was nicer than a chain link fence on that side, which I know is more expensive, it'll also make it look more pleasing if it's going to be right there on the property line.
And where do you need the path? You said.
Well, there's a path right there at 601 Cherry Circle.
Yeah, there's a
and then-
walking you can go through to Galahad.
Oh, yeah, right along, I don't mean, yeah.
Yes, and that's
On the
a
north edge,
pedestrian
on the
path.
north edge.
Yeah, and people walk that path. It's a commonly walked path.
Do you have a comment now, or are you just gonna consider it?
Is- Yeah,
Okay,
that's where I just wanted to say that, so, yep,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay,
thank you.
So our plan on the north side, because of the path, is not to put the fence on the property line. So we've actually talked about setting back quite a ways from the property line, not only to make it more aesthetically pleasing for people walking the path, but also making it easier for North Hudson to maintain the path. So they typically plow that during the wintertime, and they maintain it during the summertime. I think they even mow back there on occasion. So we were planning on leaving lots of clearance for them to do that. And I'm talking maybe 6-foot setback or more. And then I believe it's your wife that I might have had the conversation. So we actually have plans to put trees in on that north edge as a border in addition to the fence. And we were going to do that in the fall, but things froze up pretty quickly, and we couldn't get the trees out that we wanted to pull out, that were pulling from another property, to put in the property. Now, we thought about putting the trees on the public side of the fence, but there was a lot of issues with maintenance on that. So what we are intending to do right now is set the fence back quite a ways and put the trees in on our side of the fence so that we can maintain them and not be in conflict with the North Hudson Park. So that's what the
So
plan
then,
is right
just
now.
for clarification for me, on this picture you gave us on the
Yep.
north one,
Yep.
it clearly shows a path, and then to the right of it, it shows the fence.
Yep.
So that's, okay.
Yep, yep. So,
That's what you're both talking about, good.
yep. And like I say, we've actually had conversations with North Hudson and the maintenance of the path, the plowing of the path, and how much clearance they want. And we were not only gonna give them that clearance, but a couple of feet in addition to that.
Okay.
And then we're putting trees in. So one of the things that we've done, I think that you're commenting on how how the property looks now after remediation, we've actually put a berm in there. And the plan was actually to put the trees on top of the berm, which would provide even more of a kind of a break between the residential area and the buildings. Even though I think the buildings are beautiful.
And so what is the difficulty with maintaining the trees on the public side of the path? Even
Well-
though they're still on your property?
Yeah, when you're just the fact that there's a fence there, we would have to leave the area and go out and trim around the trees and water around the trees and things like that through the fence. And the way that we've kind of worked it out with North Hudson is we would have the trees on our side of the fence and they would maintain the path just like they do now.
Then you can just drag a hose around or whatever, you don't have to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have to worry, we don't have to go around the fence and we don't have to do any of that stuff.
I think from the residential side, you're more likely to have more appreciation for trees that are on your side of the fence, because
Well,
it breaks up the line of the fence.
The other problem with that is that if we put them on the other side of the fence, they're also gonna be not on top of the berm. So and the berm is relatively high. It's probably I'm gonna say it's a 3 foot to 4 foot berm, depending on where.
Yeah.
Putting the trees on top of that berm really does provide a much higher break. If we move the trees towards the path, they're gonna come off the berm and they're gonna be that much shorter.
So is the fence line gonna be below the berm or at a?
It'll actually be
half-grade
kind of,
level?
it'll kind of be up against the berm. Yep. Scotch pines, yep.
Could you grow some clinging vines on the fence? I'm trying to break up that fence line, because that fence line, I think, is what your concern is visually
Yeah, I
from
don't,
the
I mean,
homes. But something to help break that, and it doesn't have to be a tree
yeah.
necessarily.
Poison ivy spreads real good.
But some,
Woodbine.
some vine that would
I
help to alleviate that.
would probably put that back to the park and ask them what they would want to do there.
Yeah. Well, it's on your property. Okay.
Right, but kind of the agreement that we have with North Hudson is, we're gonna share the maintenance of that piece of property. That's why we're pushing the fence back.
And when you say North Hudson, you're talking about the Public Works Department,
Yep.
right? I mean,
Yep,
this is also North Hudson, but, yeah,
Yep.
just to clarify,
yeah, sorry, yep.
yeah. We're on break while Mike works out the tape recorder.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have to tape it off.
Anyone else from the public?
There's some these wild grapevines and stuff.
I am Rodney Swanson. I live on 604 Galahad, and Bill's my neighbor. And I basically grew up on 4th Street, and I've kind of known the shop yards my whole life. And actually, my grandfather worked in the shops. I like what you've done to them. It's actually cleaned it up pretty well. And I kind of take pride in, I don't know, keeping them secure, because this past summer we had people back there mudding and stuff like that. I actually took a photo of them, and yeah, it was kind of it was loud and obnoxious, but other than that, yeah, I wasn't totally for a fence to begin with, but now that I see kind of how you're going to actually fence it off from people even driving back there completely, that's nice. You won't have anybody going back there whipping around and doing whatever. But if we're going to do a fence, like Bill said, we'd like to have it, you know, off the property line, you know, further south of the path, and then have the trees in front of that. And I think it was this past fall, I don't know who came out, but they staked a few spots to put trees.
Yep.
And there was like 6 trees, but we'd like to see probably double that at least, you know, just to make it, you know, kind of worth putting them in. I don't know, but yeah, that's, if we're gonna do a fence, we'd like to see some trees in front of it anyway, so that's basically all I got. So.
Thank you.
Can I have that back?
Thank you. We can get you one after the meeting if you'd like one. Anyone else? Sure, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Stacy Lytle. I live at 315 3rd Street North, so I am a little different side than these gentlemen are of where the fence is going up. So I have a couple concerns, not only about the fence, but about the property. I appreciate that these guys love that everything is getting cleaned up and pretty. My end of the area, it's not so pretty at all. My backyard has probably a 30-foot pile of concrete and dirt in it. So every morning when I get up, I get to see a big old pile out my back window, which is not fun to look at. It's been there a year and a half. We've been dealing with it. I've called the village and asked about it. They said that it's a DNR project and there's nothing that I can do about it. So that was one of my things I wanted to address, because I've looked at some of the statutes and it says that any work that's being done needs to be cleaned up by Friday of the work week that the work was completed, which obviously has not been done. It's been a year and a half in our backyard. I was informed that there was lead in the soil and debris, and that's why it was being uprooted and brought over there. So that's another concern I have for my family. I have 4 children. My next door neighbors have 4 children on the south side of me, 2 children on the north, well, now only one has left the nest. But all that wind comes, catches the dirt, or is that exposing us to lead as well? I don't know. So my concern is with a chain link fence as well. That is not going to be pretty to look at out my back window either. It's not going to cover the mess that's back there. This last summer, there was no grooming of the land behind my property. No one came and mowed. The grass was completely long, and we actually went a little further into their property to clean it up as best we could throughout the summer. But finally I was like, no, but that's their property. We shouldn't be doing it. And so we stopped, but it's not fun to look at for me. The other properties by the shops, those do look great. However, there is several families that are living around the storage end area of it that I don't think are happy with what has been going on. As far as the fence going on the property line, is that village, is that legal to do with a 6-foot fence? Because I found that it has to be at least 10 feet off the property line if it's over 4.5 feet.
Because it's in an industrial district, there is no setback, it just has to be on their property.
But our property is residential that it's butting up against. So is that,
But the fence itself is located on industrial land.
Yeah.
but it's being put on the property line, which
Of industrial land, not of residential land.
but it is butting up against residential land. It's residential and,
It is, but it goes by whatever the zoning parcel, and if you look in the ordinance, it says it just has to be located within the property. Does not have like a 5-foot, 10-foot setback requirement,
So
like
it,
what you would see in the residential.
it won't be on your property, it'll be on the border, but it'll not go actually on your property.
But it'll be on the property line. That's just what I'm getting off of this.
Yeah.
I think what she's saying is,
In
if she were to put up
residential.
a fence, she'd have to have a setback.
Yeah.
Because it would be on residential,
'Cause it would
on
be on-
zoning marked residential,
She wants to
which
know
is the
why they
rules in
don't.
residential.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'd like that brought up. I don't think that it's okay for them to put a fence on our property line that tall. I really don't like to have to look at a chain link fence. But so I'm very much against it. I don't like what has gone on with the whole property as a whole the last 2 years. And this is just another obstacle getting thrown my way, I guess, is how I look at it. And I do disagree with the fact that they can put it on the property line, but I cannot. I mean, it's butting up to a residential property, so they should be having to follow the same rules and regulations, I think. So,
Thank you. Do
that's all I have.
you want to comment? Sure. You don't have to, but if you want to.
What was your address?
315.
So as we've discussed before, the WDNR has been in charge of the project. So how soil and piles are moved around the property, we don't really have any say in that. That's all project managed by the WDNR. The pile that you're talking about has no lead contamination, no contamination at all in that pile. That is all clean fill. And had the project not overrun the timeline, that pile would have been removed. But we got the freeze, it froze. They're saying that we can't move it until spring. Like I say, I'm not managing the project. I have nothing to do with how the remediation goes.
And you said WDNR is the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources?
Correct.
So the state's doing this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And the local contact is Pat Collins. He's the project manager with the WDNR. And Cedar Corp, not Kevin, but Cedar Corp has been involved. They're the environmental oversight for the project. So they're the ones that have been working with the WDNR to manage the project.
Just, I'd like to interrupt, actually. The only topic before this board tonight is the fence.
Yep.
And this board has no control whatsoever over that pile.
Yep.
Even if everybody on here
right.
wanted to take a shovel out there and do it, they would not be allowed to.
I just wanted to make sure that
But
the
I
public,
appreciate
I
that
just
you've
wanted to
given
make
her
sure that the public
Some answers. but-
didn't get freaked out about having lead in a pile
Yeah, no,
sitting
that's
in
good.
North Hudson. There is no contamination in that pile. It is completely clean. It has been tested by Cedar Corp and the WDNR. All of the information has been submitted to the state, and everybody has it recorded as clean fill.
And that's nice to know, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else in the public? Anyone else?
Is the property gonna be maintained? That wasn't addressed either.
Yeah,
If you got,
if you have more comments, you can go back up to the microphone so that it's recorded and on the.
So if this fence does go up, is the property going to be maintained on your property of the fence, on that side of the fence? That wasn't addressed.
Yes, we'll maintain the property. We've been maintaining the property with the exception of the area that she has brought up. And again, that part of the property wasn't maintained because it was part of the remediation project. Anybody that has seen where the remediation has been completed, you can tell that we've been maintaining the property since it's been remediated. That part of the property, we're not done with it, obviously, or the pile would be removed. Once the pile is removed, we'll go back to maintaining it just like we're maintaining the rest of the property.
do you anticipate the state being done when the weather warms up and, freezing stuff is over? Is that what their timeline is?
Actually, we just received this week the closure on the property, so the state's involvement is wrapping up.
Oh, good.
And now, because that pile is clean, it's up to Zappa basically to
Yeah.
remove the pile. So we're just waiting for the soil to thaw, and then SAPA will haul that pile out.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anything else in the public? Hearing none, I'd recommend a motion to come out of public hearing.
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor of coming out of public hearing, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
We are out of public hearing at 31 after. Members' comments? Tom, Mary, anyone?
Yes. The north project, north end, 207, the Galahad one, that is strictly, fire access, not for semi-trailers or dock trucks or anything like that. Okay.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'm just gonna make a comment. We are, this is an old industrial site, and I can understand the concern with the abutting residential, adjoining properties. But the fact that it's grandfathered here, we really don't, we're just trying to maintain what we've got now because it is what it is. So, and it hasn't been anything but what it is. So it's not like we're moving a new industrial use into your neighborhood. It's been there, since the dawn of time. So it's really just kind of how it's established. And I don't know that there's much we can do because we don't have a historic kind of qualification for this site, which is kind of how it is. But it's really just basically an industrial site. So that being said, I do appreciate your concern and efforts to kind of improve the quality of the area and make sure that it's more in tune with the residents. I think that we don't have elements of the code that speak to this. So I appeal to your kind of sense of concern and kind of cooperativeness, Mr. McFarland, to kind of help that along as best as you can. And your response about the pile of dirt, that's a bit of a concern, but not part of this.
You can do like I do. You put a fence on your side.
Yeah,
You don't have to look at it.
Yeah, you could. But I just want to make sure that you know that it's always a concern when we have an industrial site abutting a residential area. We do have to, I guess, we as a planning commission maybe should have better control of that, but there are very few places that this condition exists, and so thanks for your effort.
Is there any consideration for trees along that property line, those people's property lines?
We've talked about putting trees and shrubbery and things like that around various areas. We've even talked about on the south end, possibly taking some of that earth and burning it, similar to what we did on the north end, just to put in a break and make it look a little bit better for the residential area.
I like your idea of putting the trees on the berm to get the additional height to break up the visual.
I have a question. Would you be opposed if the residents that are looking at that chain fence planted grapevines or something on the fence? On their side, to cover it up? Some of the wild grapes and stuff grow really fast, to break it up.
Yeah, they grow good here.
Yep.
Anyone else? Mary put together a possible condition for approval.
A little too extensive, I think.
Excuse me?
I think it's a little too extensive.
Okay. Everyone had a chance to look at her 8 points? Yes? From what you've heard now, Mary, are you still in agreement with these 8 points?
Yes, I am. I think I am, just to get it on the record that.
Yes. And again, if we do choose to approve tonight, that's not final, it goes to the village board, and they always have the final say-so, and they can tweak it and so on. And that would be first week of next month. is when they would meet again and bring this up. I'd entertain a motion for approval or not. You want to make the motion?
I'll make a motion to approve with conditions. That's pretty standard. with
The 8 conditions
Subject
as
to these
stated.
8 conditions.
The only,
I'd like
You
to
have to
add one
clarify.
condition to that, if that's possible.
sure.
To-
Amendment mo-
to wherever-
Second first?
Okay,
So
sorry.
before she finishes her
Okay.
motion, you go ahead and tell her what you want, and
Yeah.
then see if she
That'd
can
make
just
it
add it in
easier.
her
Well,
motion.
I would like to suggest that wherever possible, that they can plant trees to create more of a barrier between the industrial property and the residential properties. I don't know how you would state that.
But I think the way you stated it makes it sort of a
Pretty general.
wishful condition as opposed to an enforceable condition.
Okay.
But I'm not sure we can order them to plant
Right.
trees anyway, so
Yeah.
maybe just having it in there makes it
A bullet point to consider it.
Something to
Yeah.
be considered.
a hopeful, yeah. But I think the way you worded it is fine. You know,
Consider planting trees on such and such a border. I believe is what he said.
Mary, you have a problem with that, or?
You know, I'm just trying to figure out how to word it.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as,
That's basically contradicting kind of your negotiation with the Public Works.
it does.
But, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not sure
Just
that
wherever
their
possible.
intention, the
Applicant
Public
will
Works
plant
intention is not
trees
aesthetic as much
where
as
possible.
ours may be.
Yeah, where possible, that's a good way of saying it.
Yeah.
To create a possible barrier between the industrial and residential properties.
No.
I think the trees are very nice, and it's a nice thing to do, but I don't know that we
I
can
don't think
say
that we can do
we
that.
can,
Yeah, I don't know.
we have to
Well, like I
plant
said, it's
trees.
not enforceable. It's not gonna be enforceable, but
And
Well,
I
if you made it
think,
a consideration, it'd be something they can discuss when they meet with the board. And it'll give them time to think about what he might want to propose.
so maybe it shouldn't be part of the actual permit.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
I don't think so.
Well, I'll try and be at the village board meeting so I can bring it up too, that we talked
I
about.
think Mr. McFarland has already stated he's trying
Trying to put
to
a tree.
plant green things to break it up. I mean, he said that's part of his plan, but I don't think we can force him.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor with the 8 printed conditions for approval. Is there a second to that?
I second.
We have a second. Now we can have some more discussion?
Well, I think are there items in your report, Kevin, or any other elements that you have that, I can't remember.
I think Kevin's concerns were all answered.
Yeah, okay, all right.
And from what I read on our notes, the fire and police were happy as long as they had access, and that was happening. The building inspector just pointed out that it's not zoned for a truck terminal, but there's nothing, in this fencing thing, there's nothing saying that they're changing the operation to be a truck terminal, so it's not a truck terminal. So,
That's not relevant to this
right,
discussion.
but the building inspector put it on his letter.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we have a motion, a second. Any other comments? Hearing none? I'll ask for a vote. All in favor of approval of the, let me get the things, I get it right. Approval of a conditional use permit application to Stephen J. McFarland Storage Associates in St. Croix Storage and Transfer to construct a 6-foot-high chain link fence per the conditions listed here. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. The Plan Commission. Thank you. The next item, conditional use permit application of Stephen J. McFarland, St. Croix Storage and Transfer to construct a new office building for existing businesses at 247 Monroe Street North. Why don't you go ahead and, looks pretty straightforward.
So for, actually, I think it was since building 1, the large fire on the property back in, I believe, the 80s, an office was housed in building 1. Since then, they put the office into what we call building 5. It's a small office actually inside of a warehouse building. And what we're wanting to do is put up it's basically a prefab, it's a double-wide prefab building that would sit in front of what we call Building 2. So when you drive onto the property off of Monroe Street, the office would sit right there, kind of kitty corner from the Dance Academy. So again, it's around 1,800 square feet. It's a prefab double-wide. Again, to be aesthetically pleasing, instead of bringing it in and kind of putting an apron around the bottom, we're actually going to dig a hole and put it at grade, so that it looks like a regularly constructed building as opposed to a double-wide trailer on skirted foundation. So I believe there's pictures in your packet of what the outside of the building would look like. Not a lot to it. We're obviously going to be well within the setbacks. We're way back from the property lines. We're going to observe the setback from the existing building. Yep, that's the picture, yep. And
So that's a photo of what the building will look like?
that's what it would look like, yep. And then we're not changing our business hours, we're not changing the nature of the business. We're just creating a better work environment for our employees and freeing up some space in the warehouse building that the current office is in.
Is, on this photo here, is that all a gravel base?
Yes, yep. We would anticipate putting asphalt in front of the building for parking.
And you can ask about parking. How many parking spots did you calculate?
Well, the ordinance says, one per employee and then one for every 200 square feet of office building.
Yep.
It looks like you have lots of room.
We have like 2.5 acres. We have like 2.5 acres, so yeah. I think we have plenty of parking area.
If you need 5 for customers, if you have that many customers at one time. but-
Yep, yeah, we'll have plenty of parking in front of the building. Yep.
It's on the record.
You might be parking for downtown and shuttling people.
Renting parking
Probably
space.
make more money that way.
Yeah.
You might. If that works for you, let me know.
Start a parking ride.
Any other questions from the commission?
You have a question?
No, it's just no.
Kevin, did you have questions on this one? Because I thought I.
Why don't you stay there, Mr. McFarland?
Yeah.
Kevin?
Yeah, this one was pretty straightforward, and he's already addressed the one. You know, just to meet the building setbacks, and they've been provided, what those requirements are. And then, since it's gonna be hooked up to public sewer and water, show the laterals, what sizes, and they've already provided that with his response. 1-inch service with a 4-inch sewer lateral, common for a residential unit
Okay.
like this, so,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Anything
Okay.
else?
Members have any questions? If not, we'll go to public hearing. Thank you.
I will make a motion to go to public hearing.
Okay, do we have a second?
I knew you were going to ask that.
I was
Second.
gonna ask that. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of going to public hearing, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are in public hearing at 43 after the hour. Anyone have any questions about a modular building? Any questions from the public? Any questions? I would entertain a motion to come out of public hearing.
I move we move out of public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are out of public hearing at 44 after the hour. Thank you. Pretty straightforward. Anyone got any questions?
I move approval of the intended office building.
Did you look at,
Is there a motion?
did you look?
A note? Is there a note?
There's one here somewhere. Hang on a second.
I think it's on the back of the other one.
There it is. It's on the back side of the other one.
There you go.
We have some possible conditions.
Oh, there you go.
And basically, the conditions are, I'll read them. All applicable local and state permits shall be obtained prior to commencing construction. Proposed office building shall meet all required building setbacks. It's in the middle of 2.5 acres, or whatever you said, yeah. Exterior appearance of building will be of an earth tone color or similar to existing building colors, which are aged red brick. Close enough? Parking shall consist of 1 space per employee plus 2 to 5 spaces for customers. That shouldn't be a problem. Is that what your motion was?
Perfect.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor of approval? Let me go back to this now. The conditional use permit application of Stephen J. McFarland, St. Croix Storage and Transfer, to construct a new office building for existing businesses at 247 Monroe Street North, per the four conditions brought up. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That passes too. Thank you very much. Is there any other business before we request adjournment? Anyone? No? Welcome again, Jessica. Jean? I'm looking for a motion. Kim?
Second.
All in favor of adjournment? Aye. Aye. We are adjourned at 46 after. Thank you. Thank you, public, for coming.